Hey vinyl community, I'm doing a rare contest submission today for Andy's Vinyl Den. And I'll get to the contest in 1 second, but I would be very remiss if I didn't talk about Andy for 1 second at Andy's Vinyl Den. If you don't subscribe to Andy, then, well, shame on you. But I'll put the link in the bottom, and you can click the link and check out Andy's channel. Andy and I roughly started around the same time on YouTube, and at least I've been following him and vice versa, more or less since the beginning. And he was one of that group of first channels I started watching. Andy is just a really nice guy, not pretentious in any way, which I really like and I really respect. And he has a wide range of musical tastes, which I really like in a vinyl video. So click on the link. And Andy does comics. He has recently done his first comic for the vinyl community called Tales from the Dead Wax. So if that is of interest to you, if I can spit that out, click the link, and you can find all kinds of information about Andy's vinyl community comic he's been doing. All right, the contest. It's Andy's 777 contest, and I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that was the sub count at the time. But you've exceeded that now. So what Andy wants you to do is make a mixtape. And this is another reason why I want to participate, because it's a different kind of video he wants you to make. Andy wants you to make a mixtape via YouTube, showing 10 songs that's representational of a genre. So if I was to make you a mixtape, which you never know, I might do, you never know with me. If you were to make a mixtape and give it to someone and have it be more or less representational of a certain genre, this is your chance to kind of show what that would be. So, and not one to do the same thing as everyone else. And I mean, trying to be a little bit left of center, this is what I've chosen to do. And I don't think this is this kind of music is of any interest to Andy. I could be wrong. But like I said, I just didn't want to do something same old, same old. It just so happens I was pulling singles for DJing, just for play. And I thought this might be something decent to do that might be of interest, that's maybe a little bit different. What I'm doing a mixtape of it's more or less the history of electronic music, starting with in about 77 to about early 90s, which I think was kind of the heyday of electronic music. There was good stuff after that, but everything after that kind of, there wasn't so much groundbreaking stuff, in my opinion, after that. Obviously, you know, starting in 77, everything coming out that was electronic was kind of new, because the technology at the time was just coming out, you know, analog synths and MIDI and all that stuff like that. So anyways, is this a definitive list? Nope. But I would feel comfortable giving someone a mixtape with these 10 songs and said, this is more or less a brief overview of electronic music in that range of years I told you. Whew, that was a mouthful. We're going to start here. We're going to start with a gentleman called Giorgio Moroder, 1977. He used the voice of Donna Summer to create one of the greatest and most influential electronic songs of all time, that some of you might not know, that is what it is. It's I Feel Love by Donna Summer, which obviously Donna Summer was the voice of the Giorgio Moroder production. This is actually a pretty rare single, the one-sided single for I Feel Love. But it was one of the first songs to really use, if you listen to it, you can hear that that keyboard line that's been ripped off 1 million times since then. Insanely influential. Giorgio Moroder's keyboards were, and his production work on this single. if you go back and revisit that, you can hear that song, that keyboard line all through the 90s, into the 80s and 90s for sure. But very, very influential track. And this is going to be my starting point, was Donna Summer's I Feel Love, which is essentially a Giorgio Moroder production. Going on into, I guess these two songs were kind of in and around the same era, around the same time. But you know what? We're going to go with Joy Division, Love Will Tear Us Apart. Although not an out-and-out electronic track, the keyboards, this is kind of almost where Joy Division were influenced by punk. But this is kind of almost that turning point where punk turned to kind of underground, or it kind of either branched off into new wave, or it went this way. It kind of went underground. Joy Division, very, very influential kind of guitar and bass lines in there, but the keyboards underneath was something a little bit unheard of for this genre of music, and it influenced a lot of stuff coming out. This was the starting point of New Order, who kind of changed everything in the 80s. So I would be, once again, I'm going to use the word remiss if I didn't throw in Joy Division's Love Will Tear Us Apart, one of those songs that a lot of people actually do name check this as a very influential electronic track, just because of the starting point of the keyboards, the turnover between punk, going into new wave or going into underground, which Joy Division took it. So Joy Division's Love Will Tear Us Apart. Going into the Human League, and I could have, some of these songs I'm going to show you, I'm not sure if I said that already. I could have pulled another 2 or 3 singles that could have subbed for either, you know, that it could have been either or, but I'm going to use the Human League, Being Boiled. The Human League were very outspoken about being influenced by this record, Donna Summer. And the from Joy Division, Human League kind of, with bands like Cabaret Voltaire, and bands like in that era, early OMD, before they were hit makers, they were very kind of an underground electronic group. But Human League is going to be representational of the kind of the starting point of that UK electronic sound that went on to influence so many things after that. Very, very influential single, Being Boiled by the Human League. And like I said, you can make the direct correlation between the Donna Summer song and that, because in retrospective interviews, a lot of people accused the Human League of being influenced by Kraftwerk, and they said, no. We were influenced by that Donna Summer single and Giorgio Moroder. So that kind of explains the Donna Summer single. Having spoken about Joy Division, the Human League and that kind of early 80s UK electronic scene that I was talking about, that didn't achieve a lot of commercial success. It was very influential. But some of those singles, like Being Boiled, it made the charts, lower reaches of the charts in the UK. But this single I'm going to show you is the absolute starting point where they picked up where these bands left off, and they kind of blew it open. Not by design, it's just totally by accident, but we're talking about New Order, my original copy of Blue Monday. This is more or less the kickoff point to, in my opinion, modern electronic music. This remains, I believe, the biggest selling 12-inch single of all time. I think we all know Blue Monday, but so you don't need to ramble on about it. But New Order took that underground scene, that sound. They adopted some of the, a little bit more of the popular stuff via Giorgio Moroder, stuff like that, and then they blew the doors wide open. That track is as influential as any electronic song you'll ever hear in your whole life. If you've been living under a rock, and you don't know Blue Monday. And the odd thing is, although some of you might know this, some of you might not know this. This is the sleeve. This came in was in a die-cut sleeve to replicate a computer floppy disk, and it was so expensive to make this cover that the band and the label lost money every time they sold one of these. So they actually didn't make any money on this single, although it was the biggest selling single of all time. I think it's very funny that the production cost of the single outweighed what they made back. So every time they sold one of these, they actually lost money. How's that for a kick in the teeth? From New Order, we're going to go with, oddly enough, and this, I could have pulled a couple different singles to represent the underground club scene in the 80s. Divine, You Think You're a Man? I could have picked, although I think this was a precursor to Dead or Alive and the stock Aiken Waterman stuff. This was the kind of the starting point of that underground, whether you like it or not, the underground gay clubs. They were very insanely influential for electronic music. That's where you kind of went to hear this music, and they were the only clubs playing that music. And Divine, actually this song was a hit in the UK, and I don't think it was a hit in North America, or a big hit anyways. I believe she was on Top of the Pops, or he was on Top of the Pops, and caused a huge controversy at the time. But this was kind of like representational of that whole underground scene that started in underground kind of gay clubs, but also then that kind of transferred over to non-gay clubs, where they picked up, you know, they kind of were the tastemakers, and other clubs picked it up. So Divine was a hugely influential single in that scene. Going on to a song I love to this day. I heard this in a mall yesterday, of all places, and I had to stop. And I was kind of embarrassing my wife by, I can't remember if I was dancing to it, or I was rapping over the samples. Mars, Pump Up the Volume. This was, I believe, the first all-sampled single. And I believe it was the first album, or single, I believe, it started getting lawsuits regarding the samples. Before that, you could kind of sample willy-nilly, and there wasn't much repercussion. Not like now, where you're paying tens of thousands of dollars for a sample. But back in the day, before people got all litigious and, you know, would call their lawyer at the drop of a hat, you got incredibly fun, inventive electronic music via samples. And Mars was the first one to get sued, but a hit everywhere in the world. Pump Up the Volume by Mars, which was a hybrid of two bands, and they kind of, I know one was Colorbox, and I can't remember the other one now, sorry. But they made this single, Pump Up the Volume, and they got sued by, I believe, one or two different people regarding some samples. So when they, this is a kind of a cool single because it has all the versions ever released. It has a US version and the original, because the one that came out in the UK, the one that came out in North America was incredibly neutered. It was, they got sued and they had to replace some samples. So, although the original UK one is my favorite, the US one that's on here as well isn't, it isn't that. They did a good version of subbing some of those illegal samples. But Mars, Pump Up the Volume. This is incredibly important for sampling in electronic music. It was, like I said, I believe the first all-sampled hit dance single. What are we at now? We're at, we're coming down there. We're over half done. We're going to go with Depeche Mode. Enjoy the Silence. Kind of like Joy Division. Kind of like, well, New Order kind of blew the doors open on that. But New Order, or Depeche Mode, if I can remember what band I'm talking about. Of all the bands for me to forget, I'm forgetting Depeche Mode. Enjoy the Silence. This is from their album Violator. which was their kind of big breakthrough album. But Enjoy the Silence was the point, kind of like Joy Division, where this underground phenomenon band broke big. And they did it via, well, Personal Jesus was huge, but that wasn't so much electronic. That kind of had a spaghetti western guitar line. But Enjoy the Silence, which oddly enough started off as a ballad before Alan Wilder and I believe Flood, the producer, went in, told the band to piss off for a couple of days, and they turned this ballad into this dance track. And it was another case of this underground band that had a huge following underground released this dance track, and it blew up massive. So this is kind of representational of that. Depeche Mode, Enjoy the Silence, where the alternative dance thing kind of broke big in the late 80s, early 90s. This was about 1990, I believe. Getting down to the end, I wanted to talk about the KLF. It would be wrong for me not to talk about the KLF. KLF, What Time Is Love? This is an original Wax Trax, the original pressing on Wax Trax Records. KLF, you could do whole videos on these guys, and I'm sure there have been. But KLF were kind of the bad boys of the electronic music scene. They didn't give a shit about anything. They used samples, and they didn't care if they got sued. And it kind of culminated in them going into a field and burning a stack of albums they got sued over, and then they burned £1 million. But they kind of had that tag on them. They were kind of like, you know, they always had a tinge of you didn't know what to expect from them, first of all, and they had a little bit of danger behind them too. But KLF really kind of dominated the dance floor. I remember going to clubs back then, and you could go to commercial clubs, top 40 clubs, and you would hear 3 a.m. Eternal. You could go to on the same night I would go to an underground club, and you would hear What Time Is Love, and some of their kind of previous singles too, because 3 a.m. Eternal was their big one, and you'd hear everywhere. And then they also had that kind of underground stuff, like What Time Is Love, etc., etc. So KLF, What Time Is Love. This song, I could have, like I said, this is one of those ones I could have pulled many other singles. Well, not many. There was a handful of really huge rave singles. I could have pulled, you know, The Shaman. I could have pulled Apotheosis. I could have pulled many things. But I wanted to pull this because I had it pulled, and it could have been in that short list of singles that I would use to represent the rave scene. Is James Brown Is Dead by LA Style. Looking back on it, this song was massive in the rave scene. I used to go to those early raves. And the raves here were different than the UK. The UK would have them in the open fields with tens of thousands of people. We would have them in these underground clubs or huge garages, and you know, you'd have to find out by word of mouth or by flyer they were having this illegal rave. Man, those were fun. Oh, Jesus. That was just a lot of just, it would be all night. It was the first time clubs would open up illegally, I guess. There was always booze cans, I guess, but dance clubs, you could open all night, and you would walk out of a club at 8 a.m. And when you walked into the club, there might have been a modicum of sunlight. When you'd walk out, it'd be full on daylight. It was that kind of thing. If you have never been to a rave back in the day. But LA Style, James Brown Is Dead, was one of those massive, influential rave singles at the time. And I want to wrap this up before it gets too long. I am a big fan of 90s ambient music. In fact, KLF made possibly one of the first electronic ambient albums with their album Chill Out. But my favorite is an album by a band called The Orb, Adventures in the Ultraworld. But the first single off of that, or the big single off of that kind of, it really started that ambient music as we know it. You know, there was Brian Eno and stuff that previously. I'm talking strictly about popularizing ambient electronic music in the 90s was The Orb and Little Fluffy Clouds I can't think of another single that would represent that genre more than this for electronic music. This is my gold stamp promo copy. I'm very proud to own this copy. It's definitely one of my favorite singles of all time, and it really, I just have great memories of going to raves, and they would throw on that song late in the night to kind of just bring things down a bit, and it really kind of brought ambient music back to the forefront by adding, you know, some beats to it, and not to over-explain it. But you know what? You can go on YouTube and check any one of those songs I'm talking and hear what I'm talking about. Anyways, I hope I did an okay job just off the top of my head explaining why I thought these singles were representational of the. Like I said, I would feel comfortable giving that mixtape to someone and saying, this is a good general overview of electronic music 77 to about 92-ish, around there. So, having said that, I hope I did something a bit different, Andy. And I know this isn't maybe up your wheelhouse, so to speak. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You're varied in your musical taste. But if nothing else, I hope you respect the effort to doing something a bit different. I could have chosen, man, I could have chosen 20 different genres, I guess. But that's the one I wanted to do. So good for bad. I hope someone out there likes, you know, what I showed. Andy, congratulations on all your success on YouTube, and congratulations on the success you're having with your Tales from the Dead Wax comic. That's really commendable that you're stepping up to do that. That's really cool, and I always look forward to your videos. And I hope you like my videos, Andy. That means a lot. Anyways, we're going to end that here. Take care, everyone. Please visit Andy's Vinyl Den for his contest details. If you want to participate, you have to be a subscriber. Or just in general, if you don't want to participate in the contest, if you want to check out his videos, just have a look. It's Andy. He's awesome. So take care, everyone. Cheers, Andy. I respect you a lot. Take care.